Today's webinar is entitled "1 in 5 Facebook Leads Come to Market." So what we're going to be talking about today, obviously around that topic, we're going to look at some stats first, and then we're going to look at some best practices on what you should be looking at, what you should be doing in order to generate more leads, and then give you some advice and some tips on what you should be doing, what you should be saying in order to convert those leads. So firstly, let's crack on with the stats. Now, to put some context around this, ValPal, most of you know what ValPal is, an online valuation tool used by about a third of the industry. It was responsible in last year for generating 1.6 million leads within the industry, and 36.7% of all ValPal leads go on to instruct. So sometimes you might hear people say, well, yeah, those online valuations aren't very good. One of the reasons why we look at these stats is because clearly 36.7% of them come to market. That's not bad. That's not a bad figure. And of that, 18.5%, so nearly 1 in 5 of those leads go on, actually go on to sell, and that's where they've been updated by the land registry. So it's really important to recognize these stats for what they are, and recognize that ValPal leads, online valuation leads, the quality of them is very good. Some other interesting facts that we have around the actual leads themselves. 27.31% of all leads, of ValPal leads, are instructed by the agent that generated that lead. Okay, which is a good number. But when you consider that, that means that 72% of those leads all then went on to instruct with another agent, just makes you think, well, there's quite a lot still of opportunity for you guys to look at in making improvements for. And we're going to be looking into this a little bit later. You know what I've also forgotten to do, which is really naughty of me? I have forgotten to introduce everybody, haven't I? So let me do that now. Just jump into that quickly.
It's always all about you, Craig.
Yeah, I know. I'm really sorry, mate. Yeah. So firstly, Anthony Jones, head of sales for ValPal, Network. Thanks for joining, Ant. Obviously, Mr. Facebook himself, Paul Long, who obviously everybody probably knows very well, and Steph Rady, who is the head of PR and marketing for Angels Media and ValPal. Yeah, sorry about that. Just dive straight in as usual. Like to hear my own voice. So just to carry on from there on the stats side, we've got bonus leads. Some of you might know what bonus leads are, some might not. A bonus lead is where a client or a consumer starts the valuation but doesn't complete it. So they put in their property details but don't give us they bow before they put in their personal information. So you might think that they're not very good quality. They're obviously higher, they're earlier in the process than someone that completes that lead, but still 8.9% of those go on to sell. So if you're a ValPal client, do something with them, send them some direct mail, do something with those leads. Very, very important to do. And this is something that we know as well, and you know this very well with looking at MovePal about how long it takes an agent to actually or a lead to come to market. It's not overnight, is it?
No, and I think we're going to touch on that in a bit more detail later on in the presentation anyway, but I think the real key thing for everyone to take away from this really is to make sure whoever it is that is calling the ValPal leads values the lead. And just because they might, the first couple of calls the negs might do, there might be a no. I'm just being nosy, just being curious. We got this information from a client because he delved into the stats and the data a bit more detail because his team were reporting to him saying these ValPal leads are rubbish. They're just a waste of
Yeah.
time. So he actually took the time to cross-reference every single address against Rightmove Plus, and he did find that the batch of 10 leads that they did call, they were all red. None of them went on to do something. But out of the next 10, 7 went on to sell. So it does show that, okay, we completely understand your team might get frustrated. They might get a few in a row that that aren't looking to do something. So they go on to do the next thing because they're busy, but just make sure they do value those leads because we know they do come good. Just some will take longer than other.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to be in that 27% and not in the 72%, right? But that's down to you. That's down to your processing. That's down to motivating your team to make sure that they're aware that if they're calling these leads, that if 1 in 5 of them come to market, so they just need to be aware of that. And then they,
Yeah. And just also add on to that, these sort of stats here, these are averages across the network, but we have these broken down for every single one of our clients of last 18 months. So do please, our contact details will be on the end slide of this webinar. So for anyone that is on the webinar that would like to have a chat and find out their stats, particularly for their performance, do please get us in touch. Get in touch because we can run through the stats. We can look at sort of what the team are currently doing. We can have a sort of a consultation really from top to bottom really, just to really make sure you are in that top performing, not just lead gens, but also converters.
Yeah, we can tell the difference because we've got different landing pages for different forms, different types of marketing. So whether you're running Facebook ads, Google ads, organically from your website, they're generally speaking, they're on different landing pages. So we can actually tell the difference. And that number that we've given you there so far, the 27% of ValPal leads go on to instruct. That's an average across all different types of marketing activity that's being done. If we specifically look at Facebook, then you can see that Facebook leads that go on to instruct is slightly lower than 27%. Well, that's you kind of accept that, right? Because you're quite top of funnel marketing there, but it's still 19.24% of all Facebook leads. That's of all the leads that have been generated using the valuation tool have come to market, right? Have gone on to market. That's the 1 in 5, very close to 1 in 5. But the next stat is the one that gives me the most concern. We'll be talking about this in a little bit later, right? That rather than 27% of the leads, 27% of the leads being instructed by the agent that generated them, it's only 5%. So what does that mean? Well, that probably means that the agent that's generating those leads are having a go at as the lead comes in, but then not valuing that lead, as Anthony was saying a minute ago. Then the lead is being, if they didn't get a success from day one, they just chuck it away and they're not nurturing it, they're not coming back to it, they're not doing a lot with it. So nearly 95% of those leads are instructed by somebody else. So it's a massive missed opportunity there. And just doing better with with the leads that you're generating can make a massive difference to your bottom line. So if we're talking, whilst we're talking about Facebook, it's a good sort of segue into Paul. You can probably reiterate those last few percentages there, Paul. Do you kind of see that with the clients that you look after and you help, as well as your own business as well?
Yeah. I think that those stats are really useful, by the way, just to let you know. I think there's loads that agents can take away and share with their team just to prove that these leads do convert, because you're totally right. The issue is the wrong mindset, going to those leads with the wrong mindset. And a lot of the time it's not the agent's fault. It's the fact that they're so used to dealing with business coming to them all the time. Totally different type of lead. But talking about the stats, yeah, if it's done correctly, that 1 in 5, and then we've got some clients who are really really understand the mindset and how they should approach these leads, and they're probably converting more, but they are doing other things which we'll run through now and obviously everyone else will run through to increase those levels on that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's quite important to recognize that we find a lot of people will just focus on one thing. We're going to show you a number of different marketing strategies, not just Facebook. Facebook works very well, but other things that you should be looking at. Paul, you're going to run through a few bit more detail about what to look at with running those Facebook ads.
Yeah, definitely, and quite a few bits to run through. So if I do waffle on, just tell me to stop. But there's definitely quite a few ways with regards to Facebook advertising where you can increase the quality of the leads and also increase the conversion rate just by a few little changes. And a lot of these things agents might not be aware of. So one of the biggest mistakes often I see, and I know Steph sees as well, is agents will often either just put the lead generating tool, be it an online valuation tool or whatever it is, on their website and think that's all they have to do. But really, we need to get as many eyeballs onto the online valuation tool, for example. Facebook ads is a great way to do that. But one of the other issues we see is that often they're just hitting that boost button. It's very easy just to hit the boost button and get eyeballs onto your advert, and then that is the first mistake, because Facebook does have so much data and so many different opportunities. And one of the things that you can do is run something called a conversion campaign, where you're heading into the back end of Facebook, which is obviously the more complicated part, setting up adverts that really tap into the Facebook algorithm and allow you to really sort of see all that magical stuff happening, where the AI and the machine learning helps you generate leads. And also the targeting options are much better as well. So that's the first step. If you're not getting good leads, you can improve the quality just by choosing a different objective. And the conversion objective is where you really can tap into Facebook's AI and machine learning. So that's the first thing there. Then the other things to remember, first of all, when you put something onto your Facebook platform or Instagram, only 5% of those people, your followers, are going to see it each time you do that. So if you are relying just on organic sort of exposure for your lead generating, you're not going to get the exposure or the distribution, the eyeballs that you need on that to get the numbers that you want to achieve. And also, I think the last thing with the ad side is the messages that you use as well is so important with Facebook advertising. Another issue that we often see is that often agents are just telling people to use the tool rather than making them want to use it in their advertising. And with any sort of social media advertising, leading with value is always a great way to start. And that could be, dropping some stats in and telling people what's happened to the market and encourage them to check the value of their home. Or if it's a guide or a download, it could be giving them some sort of update to legislation if it's a landlord, and then getting them to download a guide. So the messaging as well can have some big impacts there.
Yeah, that's always going to be the same, Paul, regardless of when the campaign. It's always going to be want, need, desire, or pain, right?
Yeah.
Those are the things, and that doesn't matter, if it was 60 years ago or 60 years forward, it's still going to be the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. But whatever platform, you're right. It doesn't matter on that. Going back to what you said about the data as well, which was really interesting. And Anthony covered the fact that these leads are early in the journey, and it can be months before they do anything. What you also have to consider is the data that Facebook is working from is predicting what you and I are probably going to be doing months in advance. That's how powerful it is. And a lot of them are saying it can be 4 to 6 months before, you know, we know what we're going to be doing. Facebook's predicting what we're going to be doing by looking at all the data points and all the clues of us clicking on things and watching things and visiting sites. So you've got to bear in mind that when you have those conversations, that you're coming from an advertising platform that's predicting what people are going to be doing, you know. So it's not like Google or some other websites where people are sort of in a search mode. They want the results there and then. Facebook is that more of that sort of discovery platform, and therefore it's predicting. So that ties in with the data as well about Facebook leads, the conversion rates, and probably agents having the wrong sort of conversations on that. And I just think, as you raised earlier, I think really the wrong mindset. It's got to be, with Facebook leads in particular, a conversation starter. You know, that's all I can explain, and that's probably what your team needs to understand, that this is a lead that comes in. It's a conversation starter. Build that relationship, and then look for that business when later on when they've sort of got to know, like, and trust you. That's really important. So with that in mind, retargeting is important. And if anyone's not sure what retargeting is, this is something that I do recommend you look at. If you want to sort of convert more of those leads, retargeting is going to allow you to stay in front of those people during that process of them making their decision. So you've got to remember, if they do an online valuation or download a guide, they probably weren't looking for that tool or that guide when they're on Facebook, Instagram, and all of a sudden they get a call from an agent who they don't know, and they're probably not going to open up and admit they're going to move and let you into value their home there and then. They probably want to know a bit more about you. So the retargeting is really powerful in helping with that. We can get back in front of those people on a weekly basis by using Facebook's audiences. So some of the clients Steph and myself work with, and Anthony, will often include retargeting campaigns where we will make sure that anyone uses your online valuation tool, anyone visits your Facebook page, visits your website, they're then seeing you every week there afterwards. And that just helps people to trust you over time, because the frequency of seeing you every week really does help them to get to know you, like you, and then essentially trust you. And then when they are ready, you're going to be top of mind. So retargeting is something I do recommend if you're really trying to convert more of those leads and end up with better conversations. And the other thing that often people overlook is, you know, it's great getting in front of new people, but uploading data. And I think, Craig, you often talk about this, don't you, about data it sits on?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a bugbear of mine, to be honest with you, where, you know, you're always interested in getting new, fresh meat, which is fair, which is good, and you should be. But you also got to look to see what you got in that, either sat in your CRM or in your busy filing cabinet, because that, you know, that is gold as well. So doing stuff with your database, with your data, using your data just both to push it into doing what Paul's talking about here, and using that through your social channels, but generally speaking as well, even to nurture that data, which we'll come on to in a minute as well.
Yeah, it's quite a simple process with Facebook. Obviously, you can upload it into nurturing systems like MovePower or systems which nurture, but actually uploading lists into Facebook as email addresses and allowing Facebook to find those people is a real easy win for agents. And you can run online valuation tool campaigns, you know, downloads to those audiences, just to help you identify who in that data might be looking to do something. But do remember, you know, up to 60% of your business can come from, you know, repeat business, referrals, recommendations. So it makes total sense to tap into that and use that data as well.
Just to add it on to that, Paul, just to sort of chime in, I do think you're so right there, both what you and Craig said, because the gold has always been local homeowner data. But then agents sometimes forget how much local homeowner data they've already got. They go looking for more, but actually it's thinking in every step of the process with any new lead that comes in, it's the key thing is what you're doing with that data. So as you said, whether it be phone calls, whether it be emails, whether it be retargeting through social media, the more sort of places you can keep in front of your database, the better. So I think that's a real key thing to think of. And also, as you said Paul, about sort of mindset is just because it's maybe switching the mindset from being a lead to a local homeowner, if that makes sense. Because if a lead says then no, then it's okay, it's a rubbish lead. Whereas if it's a homeowner, it's going, okay, well, what are we now doing with Mr. Homeowner, Mrs. Homeowner? So when they do look to move in, whether it be a year, 2 years, 5 years, it's your agency that I think of. So I think that's the real key thing here is it's that mindset.
You know what? I think it's also really important to remember and recognize where the lead came from and what you should be saying to that. Because you said something really interesting earlier there, Paul, about the mindset of somebody that's, Facebook is all about, sort of knowledge gathering, and it's kind of they're starting that process, and Google is much more, in order to generate a Google lead, they got to be in search mode, right? And they've got to be in a different place. But if you're doing both and you pick up the phone and talk to them both with the same mindset and the questions, it's going to be wrong. You're not going to get the most out of it. But if somebody really understands where the lead has come from and where the client is probably, you're making some assumptions, but where they probably are in their buying process, you're going to have a better outcome.
No,
yeah, I was going to say that kind of leads quite nicely into with Steph, because Steph's going to talk us through a little bit more about sort of Google and that the mindset of sort of where a lead comes from with Google. So just a little bit more about that, Steph.
Yeah, I think there's been some good points raised. I mean, if you look at any of the kind of sales trainers in and outside of the industry, they always say that it's all about mindset. So I know Grant Cordone, who I know some agents on here are quite familiar with, he says that a great salesperson will see every lead and every opportunity as future business, and they won't rest until they get that future business. So that's a good mindset to kind of go into this with. And like Paul said earlier, the main difference between Facebook and Google advertising is that Google ads are, people are in the active search mindset. So in theory, they should be of higher intent and more ready to kind of talk to you. So with Google, there are lots of different ways to kind of get more out of it. And I would say that the majority of conversations I have with agents, they kind of say, oh, no, we steer clear of Google because we did a campaign 10 years ago and we spent way too much money on it. And it is easy to do that, but a lot has changed in 10 years. So there are ways to definitely kind of bring down your budget and spend it smarter without spreading yourself too thinly. And the best way to do that is by narrowing down your campaign to keywords that don't cost a fortune. This way you can really easily maximize your profits. And I'm really sorry.
Ridiculous.
We've got a guest.
So narrowing down your campaigns to keywords that don't cost a fortune is a really easy way of doing that. And the data that Google gives you now, years ago, you used to have to kind of guess what your competition were bidding on and bid a penny above that to appear on top of them. But now Google actively gives you that data. You can see how many searches for particular keywords are made each month. So you can see kind of roughly how in use the keyword is. And you can also see what the max bids are on those keywords. So you can spend your budget a lot better without breaking the bank and knowing what keywords are converting for you. So my advice to anyone looking to do Google is to start small and build up once a campaign's working. There's no point throwing money at the wall and hoping something will stick. It's also really, really crucial to have a high converting landing page with minimal distraction, which is why on our side of things, the ValPal tool works so well, because all they can do on that page is get a valuation. So it means that your adverts can be a lot more targeted and relevant. And as anyone who's done anything with Google or SEO or anything like that before, and Facebook, relevance is key. The more relevant your ads are, the more Google and Facebook kind of push your ads out to the right people. Another great thing about Google in comparison to Facebook is you can really drill deep on the targeting. So you can actually see where people are when they come in as a lead. So for example, if you only cover a small patch, while we always recommend, you know, having a bit of a radius on campaigns so that you can get kind of more opportunities, you can drill right down into those kind of target areas that you're looking to cover.
Yeah, and it's like if you think about what I was saying earlier about where the lead is in the sales process, if you think about a Google ad, that's somebody they've made a number of decisions already, right? They've decided to find you, they just don't know who you are. So they open up Google and they're typing in, you know, best estate agent in Hove or something like that, and to look for you. Whereas a Facebook lead, you're casting a net to them to try and get their interest. So, you know, two different kinds of where they both good leads, but they sit in your sales funnel in different places. Regardless though of where the lead comes from, right? There are a number of best practices to follow, regardless. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. Actually, this applies to everything. Speed to lead. We bang on about this all the time. I know that, Paul, you're a big fan of this as well. The stats behind it are quite compelling. And you're just 21 times higher. You've got 21 times higher chance of converting a lead if you can get to it within 5 minutes of it coming in. It's a fairly obvious thing, right? Because that client is still in the mindset. They're still probably looking at the results page. They're still in that zone. The minute they come out of that page, you have one more hurdle to overcome before you can get a positive reaction from them. 20 minutes later, you know, you're further down that, you know, further down that process, and your chances get fewer and fewer. You know, as we've said there, especially online, because they're actually looking at those results, and hopefully you can get in front of them while they're still doing that.
What I find,
yeah, go on, sorry, Craig.
I was just going to say, because I've found this a couple of times when I've sort of recommended this to agents. Sometimes I go, oh, that's a bit pushy, or that's a bit forward. I'll start with just sending them an email. But the example I always use is, I don't think I've ever had it. If someone's ever emailed me to ask something or whichever it was, and I've picked up the phone to them straight away, I don't think I've ever got a negative response. I think the only response I've ever had is, oh, wow, that was quick, or that's impressive. Yeah. So I think it's also understanding that, again, it's not the speed, it's what's said in the phone, which obviously is coming. But I think that's really important, is to also get over that maybe fear and understanding that it's not being pushy because you are on the phone, because you are, as long as you're calling with
cover that off anyway, right? Because if someone says, blimey, you're a bit keen, right? You're trying to win their business to list their property. And what would they prefer? Would they prefer someone that jumps on an inquiry to buy their house, or wait 3 days before they actually speak to somebody that might be interested in buying their house? You know, I mean, it's a really easy one to overcome that. If anyone does mention that to you, just say, how would you prefer me to, how quickly would you want me to be talking to your, you know, your potential clients? So, yeah.
Agreed. So
what to say on the phone? And
yeah, so I think this goes, but I mean, we've all said it a lot this webinar. It's the mindset, and it's leading with value, because everyone probably knows not to say this anyway, but if you did pick up the phone to a lead and say, thanks, using our online valuation, or are you looking at selling your property? 99% of the time, you're going to get, you might get the odd one, which is brilliant. You're going to get, but 99% of the time, it's a very closed question. and also it's quite a direct and forward question, which isn't always going to end well. Whereas what we real key question that we always recommend just to ask is, so hi, it's Anthony from ValPal, etc. Thanks for using our online valuation tool. What prompted your inquiry today? Because it's a real open-ended question. It gets the consumer open up, gets them talking about their situation, and then you'll start to gather so much information that you will then need to know. Even if they're not looking to sell, you might find other opportunities that you might be able to help them with, so whether it's like financial services, mortgages, conveyancing, etc. Or they might be looking at moving into the area. You might have another property on the books. They might be needing to move to a certain type of area for a school, etc. So that is really, really important, because that part's the sort of information gathering. Instead of just going, are you looking at selling? Because that will then be closed. When you're calling, we touched on there, the speed to lead is really, really important. But also trying them at different times of the day. Just because you might have called them first thing in the morning, they might not have answered. Maybe try them again at lunch, in late afternoon. So people at work, people are here, they're on a webinar, they won't be able to answer a call right now. So just because they don't answer the phone the first time, again, doesn't mean it's rubbish lead, they're not interested. Again, there's systems that can help with this, so automation such as ValPal that can help with the follow-up, the nurturing, because a lot of the time we do appreciate, we're not calling agents lazy, if that makes sense. We do completely appreciate agents are busy, and the only thing sitting in your inbox aren't just ValPal leads. You've got tons of other emails to sieve through. So it's just trying to be as efficient as possible. So which systems can help with? Again, how many times? Always call at least more than once. Our members that get the best results through ValPal call through all of their warm leads and their in funnel, their nurturing leads every quarter as a way to re-engage. Again, they're calling with value, so they're calling to find out if that homeowner situation has changed, but also give them an update on the local property market, what's going on with the interest rates, mortgage rates at the moment. So always think, what can you be doing to give value? And we've got some sort of crib sheets here, if that makes sense. You can see, so 9 questions to improve lead calling, 10 questions to. So please, anyone that wants a copy of these, just pop yes in the comments box, and we'll pop these over for you following the webinar.
So something, Anthony, which you raised there, which I think is a really good point, is, you know, that first conversation of what prompted you to use the online valuation rather than straight into, do you want a valuation? I think a lot of these people are in that research phase. You know, that some of them might not even know they're in that phase, because they just, it's an idea, but a lot of them are in that research phase. So the other thing is, after what prompted is not just to think that a booked valuation is the only option you can provide them. You know, it might be that they need some more information to help them. You know, maybe it's a guide, maybe it's a checklist, maybe it's even just a guide to what does it actually cost to move nowadays. You know, we haven't moved for 10 years. Or maybe it's property. You know, maybe they don't even want to know what the value of their property is because they're thinking of moving to wherever. So it is, yeah, it's just thinking more about finding it more about them first before even making any recommendations, and seeing if there's another angle that you can come from.
100% agree with that. I think we've talked a lot earlier in the webinar about making assumptions about certain leads. This first call is where you can kind of put the assumptions aside and find out about the individual person and what their circumstances are. And I think a lot of agents miss that opportunity if they go in with an email first, because they're going off of their assumption that someone is ready to sell immediately. And if they're not, they're completely closing the door to that person.
Yeah,
unintentionally.
Totally agree. And listen, we're always looking at the data. We've done a partnership with 20CI, which has opened the door to us a little bit, because we can see not only when the property was instructed, but which agent instructed it, what the date was that they instructed it, whether they are a slow mover, whether the price was reduced when it was exchanged and when it was completed. So we get the full picture and we can see everything. And as Ant mentioned earlier, anyone of you guys that is a ValPal client already, please reach out and we can provide you with some of this information, because it's really insightful. But what it's also done is we've got a mailer that I think is going out tomorrow, and it's about adding an additional little button onto the journey of your ValPal, which asks the question, is your property already on the market? Yes or no? The reason we've done that is because this data has shown us, when we look at it, that sometimes, and when I'm looking at it, I can build this picture where an agent has like generated the lead, but the property was instructed by a different agent before the valuation was done. So in other words, the property was already instructed, and then something motivated that homeowner to then use a valuation tool. But then what we've seen is the price is reduced very shortly after the online valuation was done. So the picture that we're building up is agent A list the property, but probably list the property at too high a price, and then try and put the squeeze on the homeowner to reduce the price, at which time the homeowner then uses an online valuation tool. Maybe they see a Facebook ad or a Google ad or whatever it might be. But the phone call that's had with them, as Ant was saying, is all about, like, you know, what motivated you to use the valuation tool? Well, in that instance, none of that is going to work with that client. They're just going to push you away because they've already got their property on the market. So what we're now recommending that you also do in that initial call is slide in, or is your property already on the market? So, hey, Anthony, you just used our online valuation tool. Can I ask you what motivated you to use the valuation tool today? Or have you already got your property on the market? Right? Slide that question into that call, because if their property is already on the market, it's a very, very different conversation you're having with the client, right? And they go from top of funnel to bottom of funnel because they're already on the market, and they're not happy with something. They're not happy with the agent, perhaps, that they're talking that they listed the property with. There is a massive opportunity for you to provide extra value, to provide, you know, a service that they're not getting at the moment today, because that property is already on the market, right? So really important. The takeaway from this is definitely add that to your initial pitch, if you like, that you're talking to a client with.
Yeah. And then just to sort of wrap up, I mean, where you touched on their takeaway, Craig, I'd say, I know we haven't included this, so I'm adding a part, but I'd say my key takeaway from today, from what we've all spoken about, has definitely been value at all points. So that's giving value to get their information, and then to generate new data. And then once you've got their data, it's then thinking, okay, we've got this contact. Doesn't matter where they are in their journey. What can we really be doing in any form possible, whether that be retargeting, email marketing, phone call, print, anything we're doing to give them as much value and as much information? Because I think the decision-making process has changed a lot over the last 10 years or so, because people can gather so much information online. So it's making sure it's your agency that they're looking at, whether it be social posts, emails on your website, blogs, content, etc., to find that value, to position you in that right way. So it's your agency that they choose.
Yeah,
perfect. And then just to wrap up, as we mentioned, so please do anyone get in touch. Our contact details are all there on screen. So if you, as Craig said, if you are a ValPal member and you want to run through your specific data and your stats for your account, or if there's anything you want to run through, do please get in touch. But thank you everyone for joining us today, and we look forward to the next one.